Hello, my lovelies. It is time for my April wrap-up vlog, so stay tuned. So it is Monday, April 7th, and I have completed 3 books. So the first book that I completed, I think, was on the 2nd, and that was Joe and Lorie, and that was by, I think, Melissa Dela Cruz and Margaret Stoll. I looked at the reviews people were putting on Goodreads, and I was kind of surprised by it because there were a lot of people that had given it 1 star without even reading it, and I thought it was fantastic. I'm giving it 5 stars because, okay, so a lot of the reasons why people gave it 1 stars was because they thought that it was kind of an atrocity to change the ending of Little Women. That's what they thought this book was. That it was a retelling, that it wasn't like they took Little Women and changed it. And that's not the case. So Louisa May Alcott wrote Little Women, and in most places it was in 2-part, or it was like 2 books, Little Women and Good Wives. In the US, both have been combined into 1 book, but it is still split. Like when I look at my books, you get to the 2nd book in it. But she wrote these based on her and her sisters, and I mean, it was still fiction, but she based this on her family and stuff. And Joe is based on Louisa May Alcott herself. And in the book Joe and Lorie, this takes place actually between these 2 books. And Joe, aka Louisa, in this has written Little Women based on her and her sisters and their lives, and it did exceptionally well, and now she's expected to write this sequel, Good Wives, and it's the struggle that she's going through to write this sequel and make draft after draft and be turned down because it's either too sweet and boring or too exciting and risque, to find just the right balance and to make her readers happy and for her to at least be somewhat happy with how it goes. But it's also like talking about the life that they're going through at this time. And Margaret Stoll and Melissa Dela Cruz, they did a lot of research on things that were happening with Louisa May Alcott during that time and based this stuff on like letters and all kinds of other things. So a lot is based in truth, though of course it's still fiction. And you know, they of course as writers take their own liberties as well as a work of fiction. So the main thing of this whole book is really just Joe trying to figure out how to do this sequel. Though, of course, there's lots of things about her family and, of course, Lorie, who's in love with Joe. And, yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I love Little Women, and I equally loved this book. So, yes, I give it 5 stars. Next, I read Zora Books Her Happy Ever After by Taj McCoy. And I think I'm going to give this one like a 3.25. It was okay. It was cute. I feel like there was a lot of fluff added. It's not like a super long book. Like only 316 pages, but I feel like there was a lot of fluff in this to get it to that page count, because there's several parts in the book where she goes into so much detail about things that are completely unnecessary. Like her and her granny are having this discussion, and while they're having this discussion, instead of it just being the discussion, her and Granny are preparing this meal. And she literally talks about each thing she chops and how much of each spice. I mean, essentially, it's a recipe throughout that chapter without actually giving the recipe. But it's every little detail of preparing this meal. And then she goes on to take a shower, and she talks about how, she wraps her hair in silk and then puts her shower cap on. And that would have been fine. But she goes into detail describing, like, her shower cap. And it's got this design, and it's these colors, and, like, completely unnecessary. She talks about doing her makeup and literally goes into all the different pieces of makeup she's using and which brushes she's using and just everything. And I'm like, it was just so much unnecessary fluff. But this is about, what's her name? Zora. And she is a bookstore owner, and she lives with her granny and her best friend. Her parents have both passed away, and her granny gave her their family home, and the granny now lives like in the mother-in-law suite, and her and her best friend Emma, they live in the main family home. And the money that she's gotten from her parents gave her the seed money to be able to start this bookstore, and it's been doing really, really good. She's worked really, really hard on it over the past couple of years and making it something amazing. And then she gets this email because she's trying to coordinate author events and things like that. And she gets this email saying that this particular author will be coming and doing an event at her store. And she starts kind of freaking out because she has a major crush on this author. I mean, just his photo alone, he's fine, but she loves his writing. She loves the characters in his book. She's read all of his books, including a memoir and all of this. And she's just like a ball of mess when it comes to him coming to her store. And so she's trying to not be too fangirly, but the day comes and he's gorgeous, he's charming, he's kind. And she gets the event going, and she sits on this back row next to this very curmudgeon, grumpy man who keeps whispering under his breath and does not really seem to be thrilled about being there. It's kind of an instant hate, or it seems like an instant hate relationship between Zora and this man. But come to find out, this man is the author's best friend. And eventually they find themselves in a situation where she is now dating both of them and trying to get to know them both and understand them both. And she's also having encounters with them both. And I mean, I guess to each their own, but she also has like a feeling that there's something she's not finding out about each of them, and that gets revealed and things blow up. And yeah, I enjoyed it okay. It was just fine. I definitely don't see myself reading this again, though. The next thing I read was a book that I'm currently filming my Better Book It video, and this is the first book that got selected for that. And it was for a movie adaptation, so I selected The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold? Yeah. And I wasn't sure if I'd ever read this book. I knew I had watched the movie a long time ago, but I didn't have it marked on my Goodreads or anything as read, but I do own it. So that's what I read, and I have to give this 4 stars. It's so sad. Like, the whole book is just so sad. It starts out with this little girl. She's a freshman in high school, Susie Salmon. And she gets lured somewhere. She gets R-word, and then she gets unalived. And that happens in the first chapter. And then the rest of the book is her in her heaven and navigating that and experiencing things there, but also like watching her family, watching her friends, watching her killer, all of these things. And then also it's her family, and they're grieving, and they're trying to figure out what happened to her, trying to find her, once they find out she is no longer living, tried to find her killer and her body, and just bring everybody peace and closure and justice. And they're all grieving, and their lives are falling apart, and they're trying to hold themselves together. And it's the friends that were missing her and connections that she had. And it's also this killer that is continuing to go on and do terrible things. And it was very sad. And I'm going to give this one 4 stars. And I definitely need to rewatch that movie, because I feel like when I watched the movie a long time ago, I feel like the ending was different than it is in the book. But it's been so long, I can't be certain. So I definitely need to watch that movie again. So it is Tuesday, April 8th, and I've completed one more book. I finished Legendb Born by Tracy Deonn. So this follows a girl named Bree, who at the very beginning of the book, her mother dies in a hit and run, and she's distraught and essentially needs to get away. So she goes to early college at UNC Chapel Hill. This was actually something she applied for before her mother died. And when she talked to her mother, they kind of got into a fight about it. And that was right before her mother was killed. So now 3 months later, she goes to Chapel Hill. And the first night there, she witnesses something otherworldly. And these people try to wipe her memory, but it doesn't work on her. And she starts to learn all about this secret society, the Order of the Round Table. And these are like descendants of Arthur and the Round Table and Merlins and all of that. She starts to realize that she got mesmered before when her mother died, and that there was a Merlin there at the hospital, and she believes that this order has something to do with her mom dying. And she wants to find out what happened. She wants to know the connection. And I think she kind of wants revenge. And so she finds a way to infiltrate this order and try to become part of it. And things get confusing here, because they're like fighting demons and stuff and protecting humankind. And so it seems as though there's a noble cause for them, and doesn't understand how her mother would be connected with all of that. And as time goes on, she realizes there's not all noble things when it comes to the order, and learns more about herself and her mother and her abilities. And this was intense. There were a couple of twists I didn't see coming, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I give it 4.5 stars. So it is still Tuesday, January 8th, and I've completed one more book. I finished Benty by Ndi Akrafor, and I thought this was just okay. I'm giving it 3 stars. Benty is the first of her people to not only leave her town or her city, but to leave the planet. She is a brilliant mathematician, and she got accepted to Uzma University. And so she leaves, and she knows that she's kind of like going to be shunned in her village and all of this stuff because of doing this. But she leaves, and she takes off, leaving the planet to go to this university. And on the ship, while she's on her way there, she starts like making friends and getting comfortable with people. And then the Meduse show up, which are these alien species that hate humans. And while she's at lunch, they come in and murder everybody, except for her and apparently the pilot. And the only reason she survives is because this small device that she has, that she's had for years, and it hasn't done anything. She's just found it, and it's an old item, and she just kind of used it as a good luck charm. But apparently this device is harmful to the Meduse, and so she's able to stay alive this way. And she kind of holds herself up in her room, just trying to survive or wait until she dies, pretty much, not expecting to survive. But this device also has let her be able to communicate. It's like working like a translator, being able to communicate with the Medusa. And she ends up working out a deal with them. And there's something that the humans have taken from the Medusa, and they have it there at the university. And she agrees to kind of be the in-between person to help negotiate a deal between the Medusa and the people at the university to get this item back. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It was fine. I don't know. I've heard so much about this that I was expecting it to be more than I guess it was. But I'm giving this one 3 stars. So it is still Tuesday, April 8th, and I have completed one more book. I finished Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first book in the Covenant series. And in this series, we have gods, though we don't really see or experience any of the gods in this book. But then there's pures and half-bloods. And the pures are from gods and having children, so gods and mortals having children. And then the children of 2 of them, purebloods, have godlike powers. And then the children of them and mortals are considered half-bloods. And the half-bloods can either train to become guards or sentinels, or if they don't qualify or don't train, then they become servants to other pureblood families. And our main character, Alex, her mother and her escaped the Covenant, which is like the training and stuff for all of this. They escaped it, and then her mother they were attacked by demons. And as far as she knew, her mother had died. And sometime later, the Covenant caught up with Alex and brought her back. And she never really knew why her mom ran away from the Covenant with her. But then she learns about that. But she also learns that her mom didn't actually die and has been turned into a demon and is now coming after her. So there's that. I will say that I don't know that this book entirely aged well. It did come out in 2011, and I don't know, some of the things were a little bit, it read like it came out then, but also there were some cringy things, like a lot of girl on girl bashing, like talking crap about each other. Just not very cool. And then Alex also referred to this older oracle lady as an old hag, and I was like, ugh. But other than that, I think it was fine. I'm giving it 3.5 stars, and I will continue the series. So it is Friday, April 11th, and I've completed 6 more books. Let's see if I can remember enough about all the things to tell you. Okay, first I read Slammed by Colleen Hoover. This follows Lakeland, who is 18 years old. Her father passed away, and her family up and moved from Texas to Michigan. And she's not really looking forward to all of this. But shortly after arriving there, her little brother makes a friend with the little boy across the street. They're like 7 or something like that. And then Lakeland meets his older brother, who is 21, and they immediately hit it off, and they're just like gaga for each other. They have an amazing date. They spend all this time together. And then he has to go away for a couple of days, and she's getting ready to start her new school. And she is super excited to see him when he gets back. She's going to see him at the end of her first day of school. She's going to see him after school. And so that whole day, she's like super giddy, super excited that he's going to be home. And that's until she reaches her 3rd period class. And he just so happens to be the teacher, which they both kind of freak out about, because he thought because she's 18 and wasn't in school right then that she was in college, and she never would have thought that he was a teacher because he's only 21. But his parents both passed away when he was 19, and he became the guardian of his little brother. Actually, I think the boys are 9 now, but it was 7 when he got guardianship of his little brother. And so he was in college at the time. He ended up doing like an accelerated pace while working a job and all of this stuff so that he could finish early. And he's actually doing a year internship, like a year contract with this school teaching. And then they will maybe give him a job afterwards, finishing up his final year of school. And they are like, well, we can't do this. And there's a lot of conflict there because of her being a student and him being a teacher, and them trying to resist. And there's a lot of grief going on in this. There's a lot of family issues going on in this. And when I finished it, I was ugly crying. I think I gave this 4.5 stars. Then I read Biff to the Future. This is by Bob Gale. He's one of the writers of the Back to the Future series, and he's written these graphic novels. And they're not like retelling the story or anything. They're actually filling in little gaps. So this particular one is where Biff had taken the almanac to his younger self, and then what led to that future that Marty and Doc came back to, where Hill Valley was a mess and Biff was in charge and all of that. And so it kind of follows his path. This was so much fun. I love these graphic novels, and I give it 5 stars. Next, I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This follows Murderbot, who is a robot that he's a sect unit. He's supposed to be like a security robot. But once upon a time, his governing chip glitched and caused him to lose complete control, and he ended up murdering like 50 people. They ended up shutting him down, and they put a new governing chip in him. But he was like, no, that he didn't want that happening again, because it talks about how like they do everything with lowest bidder and cheapest equipment and all of this stuff. And he wasn't really sure that he could trust this new governing chip. So he figured out a way to hack it and disable it. And so he's pretty much a free agent at this point and can do what he wants. But he tries to act like he still has this working governing chip. And he is sent to a planet with these scientists and meant to guard them and all that. And the book starts out with like them fighting some like ridiculous alien creature that's like all of a sudden attacking them. But there is another, not really colony, but another station of supposed to be scientists and stuff on a different part of the planet. And so they're having all of these weird issues like glitches and pieces of map missing and things like that. And they end up deciding to go check out this other group and discover bad things there. And yeah, can't really say too much about it because it is a really, really short book. There was a lot of humor. I really like Murderbot. He's quite funny. He also likes soap operas pretty much. But I think I gave this a 3.5. The next thing I read was book 1 in the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher. It's called The Fine Print. And this follows, I forget what his name is right now, but he's one of the billionaire grandsons of the person that started Dreamland, aka Disney World, okay? And the grandfather has passed away, and the 3 grandsons each receive a letter from their grandfather after he passes, telling them that they each have something that he wants them to do in order to get their shares. And they're like $25 billion shares. And our main character, he has to become the director of Dreamland for 6 months and find ways to improve. And then it has to be voted upon by a board that he's not going to know. And they all have to say yes in order for this to pass. And if one of them says no, then he will not get his shares. And he only gets one shot at this. And there's a girl that kind of opens his eyes to some of the problems at Dreamland. But she loves Dreamland and she wants it to be the best that it can be. And she has trust issues because of an ex-boyfriend. He has trust issues because of how people have treated him his entire life because of money. And they both have a hard time trusting the other in their feelings and their motives. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I gave this one a 3.75 and definitely want to continue the series. Next, I read Cog by Gran Van Eekhout, and this is a middle grade. Cog is essentially a robot, an android, and his function is to learn things. And he lives with a woman named Gina. She's a scientist that created him, and she's constantly teaching him things. And at the beginning, she takes him to a grocery store and gives him a shopping list, and tells him she's going to sit over here and have some coffee, and he's going to go and pick out the things on the list. And he kind of goes crazy with cheese and things like that, and determines that somehow Cheese Whiz works for cheese and could also replace toothpaste. It was very cute kind of thing. And then when he brings her the cart, she's like, okay, now let's go over what was wrong with this and this. And he was like, is this a bug? Do I need to be fixed? And she's like, no, you made a mistake. And when you make mistakes, you learn from those. And so the next day he decides to set forth on making mistakes so he can learn. And he steps outside in the rain, and he's like looking at things, and there's a chihuahua that's in the road and a truck coming, and he runs out into the road to try to save the chihuahua, and he gets hit by the truck. And then he wakes up at, oh gosh, what is it called? Unimind, I think is what it's called. And that's the organization or the headquarters where his kind are made, or where the scientist that made him works. And they want to probe him and test him, and they're showing him other things that are going on here, and he really doesn't like the things that he's seeing and doesn't think that this is a good place, and he wants to see Gina, and he forms a plan to escape. And this is them escaping and traveling across the country to try to get to find Gina. And he's accompanied by some other robot friends that they break out together. And it was super cute and super sweet. I think I can't remember what I gave this one. I think I gave it a 3.75. I finished that late at night after trying to rush read it. My brain was a little fuzzy. Then today I finished Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. And Odd is a very sweet, simple man. He's 20 years old, and he's a fry cook. He's got a girlfriend that he loves, and he lives a very, very simple life, with one exception. He can see dead people, and he has this sixth sense intuition that kind of can lead him to certain people or certain things. And in the beginning, he sees a girl that lives across the street, and he's used to seeing her always so happy and bouncy, and she's a young girl. And this day she's very solemn, very melancholy, and quiet. The dead don't speak; it's kind of mute, but they can show him things. And she led him to the man that Ard and killed her and helped bring him to justice. But then this other man that they've never seen in town arrives at his diner, and I will tell you more about that in just a second because my battery's about to die. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, this man arrives at the diner, and he's somebody that Odd's never seen before. This man has a voracious appetite, and there are these spirits, these entities. They're like these dark, shadowy creatures that don't have really any identifiable limbs or face or anything like that. They're just like these shadows. And whenever Odd sees these shadows, there's usually at the most like 3 or 4, and they only come around when something really bad is about to happen. So like there weren't, he calls them bodogs, or bodocs, and things like what happened with the little girl, that wasn't big enough to draw any of these bodocs. But while this man is eating at the diner, several of these bodocs end up accumulating either in the diner or outside the window looking in at this man. And by the time the man leaves, there's like 20 of these things following him. And Odd is kind of freaking out and uses his intuition to find out more about this man, lead him to this man, follow this man. And he learns that this man is kind of obsessed with serial killers, and obviously he's got something planned. When searching his house, which, yeah, he breaks into his house, he actually follows him to his house, and as the man leaves, he goes in after him. And the house is kind of like a little bit of a pigsty, not too bad, but just kind of not super clean, except for his office, which when he first gets to this office, there's nothing. It's just this blackness. And eventually 100 or 150 of these bodocs end up streaming out of this office. But once they do, it's back to like a normal office. And this man has posters of like Charles Manson and a couple other serial killers. He's got file cabinets with files, big files on all these different serial killers. And at his desk, there's nothing super striking except there's some bank statements, which pretty much shows the man has like $1.5 million. And his planner, there's nothing written on anything except it's currently August 14th in the book. And the only things that stands out about this calendar is that August 15th is missing. And when he looks through the filing cabinet, he finds that this man has made a file on himself, and the only thing in it is the page from the planner on August 15th. It doesn't say anything on it, but that day apparently is going to be significant enough. And Odd knows that with all of these bodocs around, that something terrible is going to happen, and it's likely that this man is going to be the cause of it, and it's going to happen the next day. And it's Odd trying to piece together what's going to happen, try to stop things from happening, try to warn people as much as he can anyway. And he feels it a duty to use his gift, and he tries to help people move on or find justice or to stop the bad things from happening. And not all bad things can be stopped. And this book was really sad. Also, he had like this awful upbringing, and his parents were terrible. And Odd is just the sweetest thing. And yeah, I give it 4.5 stars. It was really, really good. So it is Saturday, April 12th, and I have completed 2 more books. Or I should say, I completed one and DNF'd another. So the one that I completed was Once Upon an Eid by, which is Stories of Hope and Joy by 15 Muslim Voices. And this is edited by S.K. Ali and Aisha Saeed. I believe this is middle grade. It seemed like it kind of read like middle grade. And it was sweet. And it was all these different stories around Eid. And like there was one story about a boy, his name means generosity. And he ends up showing that and it comes back to him. And there's like a story about a girl being the only Muslim girl in her class, and a new Muslim girl joins her class, and she's not really sure, how she feels about not being the only one. But then as she gets to know this girl and they see how much they have in common, they become great friends, and she's happy to have her there. There's a story about a girl who is ready and wants to start wearing a hijab, and all the things she needs to go through before she gets to wear it, and the day that she does finally wear it, and all of that, which is on Eid. I enjoyed it. I give it 3.5 stars. The one that I DNF'd, I read about 20% of it, and it was hurting my brain. I know on Goodreads this has a lot of really good reviews, and I can see how it represents a lot of people. So it's got a high rating on Goodreads. So I'm not going to suggest anybody not read this. It's just for me personally, it hurt my brain. So that is Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austin. So she is, oh my goodness, she is a neurodivergent lesbian who has a lot of like social anxiety. She has a lot of paranoia about a lot of things. She has a phobia of bald men. The only way she really communicates with her mother is by telling her mother facts about space, because she does work at the Canadian Space Agency. She does a lot of kind of casual dating through dating apps, and she's definitely had a run-in with a couple of people who shouldn't have been on dating apps, and then their spouse has reached out to her, or she's run into this woman that she was dating that's with their spouse, things like that. She also has she can't hear in one ear, or she can't hear well in one ear. And then she also is constantly listening to true crime podcasts on loop. And there's just a lot. There's a lot, and my brain just couldn't. So I DNF this one. It's Sunday, April 13th, and I've completed one more book. I finished The Paper Swan by Layla Adder. And about halfway through this book, I was going to DNF it. I was not enjoying it. So I looked it up on Goodreads, and I saw that it has over a 4-star rating. I saw people loving this book and talking about it. It slowly builds, and it's a beautiful story, and the ending is beautiful, and all of these things. So it's like, okay, well, let me keep going and see if my mind changed. And it didn't. I really, really didn't enjoy this book. I don't get what the people are raving about. Didn't enjoy. I'm giving this one 2 stars. This follows. Okay, so we have a man named Damien who kidnaps a woman named Sky. He does this in order to punish her father, and he plans on killing Sky to make Sky's father pay for doing something to him in the past. And Damien was Sky's father, as well as Damien, both were involved in the cartel. Damien continued to be in the cartel for long after. And lo and behold, Damien wasn't always Damien, and this is something that's pretty early on in the book. He actually was the childhood friend of Sky, and something happened, and that's turned him into this man. And once she realizes who he was, or is, she ends up falling in love with him. They get it on, even though he literally chopped off her finger to make her dad think that she was being cut to pieces. Literally chopped off her finger, yeah. And there's a lot of back and forth, and he's not willing to let the hate go, and just love. And even when she gets hurt, he still can't let it go. And this is a spoiler. I'm going to raise my hand for spoilers. He ends up going to jail for all of these things, kidnapping and all of that. He still doesn't let the hate go. Takes down her father's business. That's still not enough. The father dies, and he still won't let this hate go. And so she's kind of done with him. Eventually he gets out of jail and realizes they have a kid together and still doesn't want to let things go. But eventually he does, and they're happily, live. There's some more drama, but then, all's well that ends well. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy any of it, really, except for the very, very beginning where she's being, kidnapped and all of that. And, she's trying to escape and things like that. That was the only part I enjoyed, because I was thinking, oh, this sounds like it's going to be a good thriller. But from the point that she realized who he was, I didn't like the story anymore. And even the steamy scenes. Normally I like a good steamy scene, but I was just like, no, I couldn't feel it, because after the things he had done, no. So yeah, I'm giving this 2 stars. Well, you haven't seen it yet, but I have blue hair now. It's been a minute since I've done this, but I thought I'd explain the difference since the last clip. Okay, so it is currently Saturday, April 19th, and I've completed 2 more books. So the first one I finished was Summer Reading by Jen McKinley, and this one follows a girl who, she's dyslexic, and she has kind of been struggling with not being very, being made to feel like she's simple and stupid and things like that because of her dyslexia. And she ends up falling for, of all things, a librarian, the hot librarian guy, and he's the bookish one in this book. And he sees the brilliance in her mind anyway. One of the things I thought that was really interesting about how this book was actually written was it's set with the font and things to make it easier for somebody with dyslexia to be able to read it. I thought that was really cool. And she was able to find ways to enjoy books with audiobooks, and I love that. But she is a chef, and she's come home for the summer to help care for her much younger brother. He's 14 and she's 28, so there's a huge age difference there. But her parents, or her dad and her stepmom, are taking this big European trip, and she's going to stay with her brother for the summer. And they've never really been close because of the big age difference and because they have different moms and all of that. And during this, they reconnect and find that familial bond, and it's so sweet. And hot librarian guy, he has a very difficult and complicated mother who has never told him who his father is, and he's been searching and searching to find his father. And our main character, she tries to help him in his quest. I very much enjoyed this, and this was funny because it was one of my lowest rated books, but I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. The second book that I read was The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I believe this was her debut novel, and it was so good and heartbreaking, and oh my goodness, heartbreaking. Our main character, she is 24 years old and is struggling with fibroids and terrible periods and infertility and all of that. And of course, the guy that she meets and falls gaga for wants a baseball team of children. And even though she ends up falling madly in love with him, she's constantly trying to push him away because she doesn't want him to give up what he really wants. But she knows that she's not going to be able to have children, and she's planned on doing this hysterectomy in order to alleviate a lot of the pain that she's had to go through. And also she's helping her friend Sloane with planning her wedding. And this is kind of how these two come to be, is she's the maid of honor, he's the best man, and he's hot firefighter man. But yeah, there's some very tragic things that happen in this book that almost had me sobbing while I was driving, which, if you recall, in a past past situation with me driving and sobbing, it was not a good thing. I loved it. I think I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars. So it is Thursday, April 24th, and I've completed one more book. I finished One by One by Frida McFadden. And I think I'm giving this like 2.5 stars. It was okay. I didn't love it. There's a lot of things in here that I'm just not a fan of, and I don't know, it just kind of in the end seemed a bit cheesy to me. So we have pretty much two perspectives throughout this. We have Claire, who's our main character, and then we have Anonymous, who is our killer. And Claire and her husband are going on a week-long vacation with Claire's best friend Lindsay and her boyfriend Warren. And Claire's husband is Noah, and they're also taking Noah's best friend Jack and his wife Michelle. Anyway, so they're all on their way, and apparently, this area doesn't necessarily get the best reception. They have GPS in the car, but they think, it might not work well. So Warren has maps printed out, and when the GPS goes down, he directs them. And Jack is also like a Boy Scout, and he has, compass and knows all about survival stuff. And so they end up stranded in this place trying to find the inn that they're supposed to be at. And one by one, they end up dying. I don't want to say what happens because I don't want to spoil it for somebody that might be interested in reading it. But everybody has secrets in this group of friends. Like, Claire's been having an affair with Jack. Claire and Noah's relationship is very rocky. Warren seems a bit off, even though he's supposed to be like, this big plastic surgeon doctor, but some of the things he says doesn't line up. Jack's miserable in his marriage with Michelle, and he's been sleeping with Claire. But Michelle is like the best divorce lawyer. Lindsay is not acting herself because she's trying to impress Warren, and I don't know. The twist of whodunit didn't end, it did kind of surprise me a little, but I don't know, it wasn't all that to me. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this 2.5 stars. All right, my dears, that is the end of this month's wrap up. I don't know how many books I ended up reading. I'll put the number here, but I hope you found some interesting books that you might want to read, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, always be completely you. Bye!